All right, folks. Hello and welcome. How are we all doing? All right. Now, if anyone's been on one of our drive days, you'll know what I expect when I ask a question. How are we all doing? All right. Our driver's briefing is always a bit of fun. Welcome to this fantastic little venue. We really enjoy, we've been here a couple of times now, and tonight is one of those reasons we come back. It's a really lovely space. The staff here are amazing. They're so good to work with, and they allow us to get things done that we want to get done. Thank you, Andrew, and the team, everyone who's been helping out. We really encourage you to have a go at all of the different whiskies and things that they do here. They do a lot of local collaborations with the breweries around. There's a couple of breweries, Bonehead up the road there, Hop Nation up the road there, and they really do. They have passion about what they're doing and about the local area as well. As a quick introduction, if anyone hasn't met before, my name is Dean, run Evolve Driving. We have a whole range of driving events and also some social events like this as well. So whether that be track type events, whether that be defensive driving, whether it be corporate drive days, or whether it be social events like this, we do a whole bunch of stuff. So keep up to speed with what we do. Check our website, check our socials. Quick introduction to Carter, who's been helping out with, you may have seen him signed in with Carter. He's in the office with us and is one of our instructors as well. And we do have a couple of other instructors in the audience. Thanks for coming along. Probably going to miss someone. We have Brett, we have Alex Peroni. Hello, Alex. Thanks. He's just arrived from Tasmania. He's come a long way to be here. It's the furthest travelled to get here tonight, so thank you very much. What a champion. We've got Ben Lake, who, sorry, Alex, he actually came all the way from Germany. So there you go. We've got Brett, who came from Croydon or something. So. But we've got a fantastic team.
We've got Justin.
Justin, he came from literally a block away, not even a block. You can't class that as a block, can you? So we've got some lazy instructors as well. I would like to also welcome Karl, who is the special guest of the evening, and I think the reason that some of you came, it's not because of me. I do understand and appreciate. Oh, Jordan is here as well. Sorry, Jordan. He's more than an instructor. He's a little brother. He's great. Karl is, a lot of people have maybe heard of Karl in recent times because he drives the F1 medical car, and that's sort of what we promoted, the F1 medical car driver. But essentially, there's a whole lot behind that Karl grew up racing in a whole range of categories, and not just racing, but successfully racing in a whole range of categories, both here and internationally as well. And it's sad when people get this identity of something like the medical car driver, but all the other stuff that built them up to be what they are is not understood or realised. So we want to share that. We want to get people to understand what is the person. And there's also a few other things. I did try to get some dirt. And
should I be nervous?
No, because it didn't come through. So one of the people who was going to give me the dirt turned out to chose Ed Sheeran rather than us. So
he's chosen to beat Ed Sheeran over being here. Disappointing.
I don't understand. And the other one is just blanked us. Where's Elliot?
Elliot, he's at the Ed Sheeran concert too.
Oh, shit. All right, some bloke by the name of Ed Sheeran has got something happening tonight as well. So, just up on the screen here, we've just sort of got a little bit of a run through on there. It's just going to be a guide for the chat that we're going to have. So you don't necessarily have to look in detail at the screen. It'll just give us a little guide. And just a quick little heads up too, there will be another serve of pizza coming if you're still hungry. That was meant to be here about 20 minutes ago, but they were walking out literally with 12 boxes of pizzas, and they had a local weirdo came and knocked all the pizzas out of their hand and started ranting and raving, and now there's 12 pizzas on the ground in Melrose Street in North Melbourne. So they're remaking some pizzas for us, so there will be a little bit more. To kick things off, just wanted to have a quick, I've done a bit of an introduction already, so I don't need to worry about that screen. But I do want to have a quick chat to start with, because Karl, originally you grew up over in Perth and made your way over to Melbourne and via some international travels in between as well. Initially with Perth, how was growing up in Perth and getting involved in motorsport? How did you where did it come from?
Firstly, g'day to everyone. I've met a lot of you before, so if I've met you for the first time tonight, hopefully we get to meet each other and spend some time at a racetrack sometime soon. Perth was a wonderful place to grow up if you're interested in motorsport. I had, you name it, it was at my footstep. We had the World Rally Championship at Langley Park growing up. I remember going down there as a kid, which was pretty special. Whatever you want to call Wanneroo Raceway, it was Barbagallo forever and a day. So Barbagallo Raceway, Wanneroo, Carco I think it's called now. We also had Ravenswood Speedway, and really importantly, my very first memory of motorsport growing up was the Claremont Speedway, which was one of the most iconic speedways, not only in this country, but globally as well. So without even realising it, I don't think I had much of a choice growing up between speedway, drag racing, circuit racing, World Rally Championship. It was right there at my footsteps. So I was pretty lucky growing up in WA.
Did you have like an uncle or dad or who got you into it? Like...
So my dad was involved in motorsport. I'll tell you a very quick story about Dad. He's a Kiwi. Don't hold that against him for any Kiwis in the room. He came over to Australia when he was 19.
And tried to move as far away from New Zealand as possible.
Pretty much. He went to Perth, bypassed the eastern states. He was involved in, still is involved in mining and exploration. And back then with handshake deals, it was some sort of cash deal where basically the guy had no cash and he ended up with a race car off the back of it. So he's turned up one morning and there's a race car on the front verge. He's like, well, what am I going to do? I'm going to go racing. So he went racing, loved it, fell in love with it as we all have. Was doing track days on a regular basis, and he ended up buying Alan Moffat's old left-hand drive Daytona 13B RX-7, which is
Is that the one that's just come for sale this last week?
Yeah, and he regretfully sold it for like $25,000 at the time. So yeah, it was pretty epic growing up. We had a 4-car garage at home, which was exclusively for race cars, basically. So we had the 2 RX-7s in there at one point. There was an old Datsun, I think, as well. So growing up, I was out there tinkering in the backyard. Back in the day, they would literally fire up the RX-7 at 10 o'clock at night and make sure it was on tune, and they took a lot to get on tune, those things. So you'd do a lap around the block and not only wake up our neighbourhood, but the neighbourhood over here and the neighbourhood over there. Those things were obnoxiously loud. So it was, when I reflect on it now, when you're a kid, you take everything for granted because that's all you know. But when I look at it now as an adult reflecting, far out, I was so lucky having that upbringing with all those forms of motorsport at my footstep. But equally, a family. I have a younger brother and a younger sister, and we all got into go-karting at a young age, and it's such a fantastic family sport. We'd tour all around Western Australia, right up north, down south. Yeah, and the community around motorsport is something that I'll always take with me. It's something that's really special, and some of my lifelong mates have come from go-karting in WA. Yeah, to sort of elaborate and take it down that pathway, it was a pretty good upbringing.
Yeah, that is cool, and to hear the background behind all of that, and like you said, it felt normal. That's just cars were a part of life, and then you realise, oh, not everyone has that, and
yep.
you were lucky enough to do it. What brought you over to Melbourne? Was it actually racing that brought you to Melbourne?
So it's funny, I talk about how good the upbringing was in Perth around motorsport. At a certain point in time, being in WA, I'd done a stint overseas. I lived in the UK when I was 19 years old.
So you were still in Perth and when you went overseas?
Yeah, I moved straight from Perth to the UK at 19, which was baptism of fire. You grow up pretty quickly when you move overseas at a young age. And there wasn't a lot of support from then Confederation of Australian Motorsport or Motorsport Australia. I think they do a slightly better job now than what they did back then, but I was just on my own to fend for myself. Saying that, living the dream, no complaints at all. I was living in the UK, I was living in Silverstone Village. Alex, you can probably... It's a shocking place. Milton Keynes, the city of roundabouts, you know it all too well. So Alex raced F3 over there as well for a couple of seasons. Yeah, it was a bit of a baptism of fire living over there in the UK. I did 2 seasons, and as an Aussie over there, it was a half-assed kind of effort. We had no budget like most Aussies that go over. I had Will Power and Will Davison that was just before me, and then Daniel Ricciardo was two years after me. It's tough, as Alex, you'll attest to this, it's bloody tough as an Aussie going over there. Doing it on a shoestring budget as well, and the numbers that they're talking now for Formula 3 and Formula 2, it's sort of, you know, 1.5 to 2 million euros for a season, and we're, you know, you're leaning on friends and family and trying to come up with sponsorship, and it's a hard sell to trying to get people over the line to fund your racing. I think we were spending 250,000 Australian dollars to go over there, and there's an Aussie team that Mark Webber raced for. Will Power might have raced for as well. Alan Docking Racing, and he looks after every young Aussie that goes over there. He put me up in this home in Silverstone and looked after me like an uncle. And it was a great experience. The stories and the experiences, I got to race at Silverstone when I was 19 years old, at Spa, Mugello in Italy, Nürburgring, the Formula One circuit, which got a funny story about the Nordschleife, maybe for later,
We'll get there.
while I was there. My road car will never be the same again. And my mum will never sit in the car with me again. Anyway, it was a great experience, and you learn so much. You grow up so quickly, you mature, and your confidence as a driver. But then coming back to Australia after that, the feeling of starting from scratch again, driving an open wheeler Formula car. Fundamentally, you've got a steering wheel, you've got a couple of pedals, and some sort of gear selection, whether it's paddle shift, sequential shift, or an H pattern. Adapting to a touring car, it's like hit the Control-Alt-Delete. Driving a supercar is very different. Driving a GT is probably more similar to an open wheeler, but still, it's a very different kettle of fish. And what you achieve in open wheelers doesn't always translate. You're not always recognised for your performances and efforts in open wheelers when you're trying to start a career in touring cars. So I moved to Melbourne, back to your original question, in 2012. I'd done 2 years racing supercars full-time in 10 and 11 with Brad Jones Racing, who are based in Albury. And the advantages of being in Perth that I mentioned were great growing up. And then it got to a certain point where being in Perth, you felt isolated and forgotten about. The race teams that I was trying to impress in the East, when you're in WA, you're out of sight, out of mind. And it was important at that point to jump ship, make the move over East. I moved to Kelly Racing in 2012, so I had Greg Murphy as my teammate, Rick and Todd Kelly. Actually had Jacques Villeneuve as my teammate that year as well. Greg broke his back halfway through the season, and Pepsi was sponsoring his car, and Pepsi wanted a big name, and they managed to get Jacques over the line, and he can tell a story. There's a point in his life, he didn't have a permanent residence. He was living on a super yacht, living this crazy life. And some of the stories I couldn't share tonight, but you can imagine the life that he led as a Formula One world champion. But all-round good guy, and I still catch up with Jacques in the Formula One paddock now. And it was a big move coming to Melbourne.
Where did you move to in Melbourne?
I was in Elwood, so I moved into a little flat in Elwood with a couple of mates. With some friends.
Motorsport people? Or?
Motorsport people. So Cameron Vandendungen, who commentates Formula One in Singapore and Australia, and his wife, and Philippa Garner, who she's involved in UAE. She's like an administrator in the Middle East. So it was a family, it was like this little house of motorsport people, which is the perfect way to move to Melbourne. I think I took Elwood for granted at the time because I was comparing everything to Cottesloe Beach in Perth, which it's a hard comparison. And I've done full circle, I've moved around in Melbourne, and I've actually just moved back to Elwood and absolutely love it there, and I've stopped taking it for granted now. But it was a challenging year, 2012. Kelly Racing were chosen to be the factory Nissan team for the 2013 season, and which was a huge opportunity to get Nissan involved in the championship with the Ultima. But they really dropped the ball on 2012, so it was an incredibly frustrating season in supercars. The performance of the cars was it was the worst season I think that Rick and Todd had both had in their entire career as supercar drivers. Murph struggled, we're punting around, 24th, 25th place in what is arguably the most competitive championship in the world, I would say, as far as lap times. And then 2013 started co-driving with Rick in the factory Nissan team, which was an amazing experience. And then I don't know, I've jumped around a little bit, raced a little bit of GT stuff.
You've missed out on a little bit too. So before you went overseas, what did you win here in Australia?
The Australian Formula 3 Championship.
Yeah, you just jumped right past that. So you're starting motorsport, first race. Where was your first race?
Gosh.
What sort of car was it and where was it?
So to get my licence to race Formula 3, I had to do a couple of state level events. So I remember jumping into a Formula V of all things, which such a great little car to learn in. They've literally got 58 horsepower, I think. 58 horsepower and 400 kilos. So it's all about momentum. You make a mistake in that and you are penalised. You're punished for it. So you learn to be very, very delicate with your inputs, and the finesse comes from driving something like that. So it was a good way to cut my teeth. I was testing Formula Ford as well.
Won every race you were in.
It was actually a really competitive championship. I didn't win everything.
Everyone thinks every champion's always just going to win every race.
No, there's ups and downs. I actually broke my back in that season, 2003. It was the last classic story. It's the last race of the season. The last event of the season, the last race of that event, the last lap of the last race into the last corner for the championship. State series event, so we're racing for sheep stations out there, of course. And I've got the toe over the top of the hill at Wanneroo. The guy is blocked to the inside. Naturally, I've got the toe and I've lined it up perfectly. I've gone for the outside, and this guy beside me, literally, left hand down, straight into the side of me. I've rolled 5 times, nose to tail, and landed completely flat on the ground, on the belly of the car. And being a space frame chassis, your legs are kind of rattling around in the cockpit. So I had these terrible, still got scars to this day. My kids are here tonight and they're always talking about the scars on my legs. I'll never be a leg model, but anyway, that's what it occupied a lot of my attention in the heat of the moment. But what I didn't realise is that last impact of the ground actually had a compression fracture in my spine, and it wasn't until later when I got to the hospital I was knocking down those green whistles in the ambulance like they were going out of fashion, and I got to Joondalup Hospital, which is the local one, and ironically where I ended up, the same hospital after my big accident in supercars in 2011. And they did a scan, a precautionary scan, to find out that I'd broken my back. And when you hear that it was 2003, I was 18 years old. All these thoughts go racing through your head. Everything I've been working towards. I lived and breathed motorsport. Like through high school, I was a great student, but I'd have a textbook open, and inside that text would be a motorsport news magazine I'd be flicking through, or a Kart Oz magazine.
Just for the young kids, they used to, what you see on your phone now, that used to be in print. So, yeah.
I thought it was all over. I thought I've broken my back. It's done. But 3 months of rest and recovery, and I came back in 2004 off the back of breaking my back and won the Australian Championships in Formula 3. So that was my first taste of adversity, I think, and it felt, I can't tell you how good it feels when you've been dealt a blow like that. And we've all had adversity in our life. Everyone's got a story about it, but to come back from a broken back to win the Australian Championship was like you're on cloud 9. And
so you were racing Formula 3 from Perth with a Melbourne-based team, or?
Correct, Adelaide-based team actually.
Oh, you were with
BRM, who Alex has been. You were at Bathurst last weekend with them, weren't you? Until your teammate ruined it for you.
And so you were sort of, basically you were living out of a suitcase that year. And
back and forth. I was studying engineering at the time as well. It was a big year.
And those scars on your legs, the damage to your legs and the broken back, hasn't stopped you from being able to dance. I saw you at TD's 40th, mate. You were turned up late, but you went hard that night. You went late.
Yeah, it's true. I was the last one standing.
You were? Yeah. Can dance.
It didn't stop me, that's for sure. I joke around that I used to be 6 foot and now I'm just under. But
don't joke about height with me, thank you. That's not fair at all. Not fair
Sorry,
at all.
Mate, too soon.
So you've kind of mentioned how special winning that championship was. And what sort of doors does it open up for you to win a championship like that?
You think it's going to open up lots of doors.
That's why I've asked the question the way I've asked it, because you mentioned Will Davison earlier on. There was a stage where he'd left a piece of paper in my car one time, and I looked at it and I called him up and said, "Hey, Will, you left the phone numbers of all those people in the back of the car." He said, "Oh, no, they're not phone numbers. That's all the sponsorship dollars that they're going to be paying." And I'm like, "Oh, okay." Yeah. So those doors that got open were more or less a way of other people asking for your money. Is that correct?
Yeah, more or less, yeah. So you think that incredible opportunities are going to come about off the back of, everything's just going to come easy. I've won a championship, but it's just not the reality. At the end of 2004, there was an opportunity there was this one-off race. It was kind of like an unofficial junior world championship. So I went to Bahrain. It was an F3 race. They called it the F3 Super Prix. I was racing against Nico Rosberg and Lewis Hamilton, and it was Nakajima was in there, a bunch of Alex Premat as well. He was racing that year, and they're all Formula 3 races at the time. This is 2004, long before any of them were racing in Formula 1 and had world championships to their name. And I've come over, full of bravado and confidence, thinking I've just won an Australian championship. I'm going to show these guys what Australia's all about. And I think I finished 13th, which was demoralising. And it's funny how setbacks it's like a sliding door moment. Setbacks can either demoralise you and go, you know what, I'm not cut out for this. I'm going to wave the white flag and call it a day, pursue my career in engineering. Or they can motivate you. And for me, and this is one of the key things for me, and one thing I've always taken with me with motorsport, if you love something, you really love it, it's far easier to get past those trials and tribulations and stick with it and stick it out and eventually do something good with it. It's amazing if you stick something out long enough, open doors lead to other open doors, and that's kind of, I'm maybe getting ahead of myself here, but what ultimately led to this pretty unique role in Formula 1.
Fantastic. Great way to look at it as well, with any adversity is not a closing door, it is an opportunity, an opening door. That's actually how I ended up in this industry 24 years ago, is an opening door, rather than the people where I was working at the time were made redundant. They thought it was a closing door, I thought it was an opening door. And in fact, from that time we've been working together
It's been a few years.
It would have been the time when you moved to Melbourne. It would have been around about then that we had started working together. So
yeah.
Fantastic little bit of background on your early days there, and then you've already sort of mentioned a few things about the overseas stuff, but you've spent some time over there. You were a couple of seasons sort of on, it wasn't a full season either way, was it?
Just had no funding to put a proper season together, but I've just noticed you mentioned Macau and Daytona.
Well, yeah, I do want to mention those. You did race predominantly in Formula 3 in the English series, which was at the time it was almost the World Championship series for Formula 3. And you've mentioned some names that you raced against and some names that have gone on to achieve some magnificent results. So when you mentioned 13th before, that you came 13th, and you look back on that and go, that's actually not bad.
At the time, you're always your own biggest critic in this game. You've got to stop comparing yourself to others and just think, compare yourself against yourself. You're always trying to be the best that you can be. So in reflection, I can take 13th. It's not a bad effort against those guys.
And had some reasonable results over there, some competitive results in
some good ones.
England.
Yeah, British F3, there were a couple of top 5 finishes. Spa the first time around there, classic Spa. It was bucketing with rain. Half the circuit, the other half was dry. So you've got to, flick the coin. Do you put it on slicks or on wets? And of course I put it on slicks because I was brave and stupid, or one or the other. And I remember spinning twice, full 720 at the top of Eau Rouge, which was flat in a Formula 3 car. I only lost 2 positions as I'm downshifting it was a sequential shift in the F3. Sort of recovered and got my bearings back and just kind of pressed on. But it's some amazing stories that you're exposed to. Again, sorry to mention you again, Alex, but you've got some epic stories as well, and highs and lows.
Don't say highs, that's not fair.
He wasn't scared of heights until Monza. Anyway, moving right along.
We'll get Alex, you're up next, okay? And then next event, Alex Peroni, okay, everyone?
Yeah.
Macau,
Bathurst. Is anyone who's actually driven around Bathurst here? It's been a few. It's the best circuit in this country, without a doubt. One of the best circuits in the world. As far as how treacherous it is, and we all know how treacherous it is, Macau, respectfully, makes Bathurst look like child's play. It is terrifying. You're literally going around a bay, then you go up the side of a mountain, and there's a hairpin where you almost need a handbrake and an open wheeler to get through. If you miss the turn-in point, you've literally got a 3-point turn around. but you trim the aero right back for the high speed stuff, and it's the fastest that you'll ever go into Formula 3. Probably faster than Monza, you're hitting 270, 280 kilometres an hour with walls, going past casinos in Macau. There's always, and we thought we were brave. They do motorbike races around there as well. Like statistically, it's horrible, but there's a death there every year statistically, and it's been 60 years now that they've been running that event. It's the craziest street circuit. So I raced against Vettel that year. Lucas Di Grassi won it, and he's gone on to win multiple world championships in Formula E. Robert Kubica, he is one of the most talented drivers on the planet that never... He's won he won Le Mans last year, I think, in the Ferrari.
Yes, yeah.
But the way that he was driving that car, it was like, you talk about flow state and everything. He was the one guy that after every single practice, qualifying and race at Macau, the sidewall of the tyre, I think it was a Yokohama we were using, it was always scuffed after the first lap. He was using the walls.
Couldn't read the brand on it.
The walls, the Armco as a cushion on every single practice session. And he was driving that thing. He had a Honda that was slightly underpowered against the Mercedes AMG motors. This is when Formula 3 was an open category. And he was driving beyond that car's capability. It was amazing to watch. He should have had a couple of Formula 1 World Championships to his name, in my opinion. He was so talented until he went and did a rally race and completely destroyed his hand.
Yeah.
Sidetracked. Daytona was fun. It's the only 24-hour race I've done, and it's like
Did you pole on that?
we put it on third in the
right,
GT category. There were only 2 categories back then. It's the only 24-hour race I've done. I don't know why, because I loved it. It's like a choose-your-own-adventure story. And just to finish a 24-hour race, and I was the lucky one out of the 4 drivers in our team that actually I got the stint to finish and see the checkered flag. To see a checkered flag after 24 hours, and it was a mess of a race. We finished P nowhere. But
due to mechanical failure.
The first lap, we lost our bonnet. The bonnet flew up with Diego, my Italian teammate, Diego Alessi. What a race car driver name. Diego started the race, and one of the bonnet pins wasn't in properly. Like into a 24-hour race, next minute he's driving around with his bonnet blocking his vision. So that kind of set us off, and you go to sleep. It's hard to sleep in a 24-hour race, but you go to sleep and you wake up and you think, what the heck's going on? Like, what have I missed in the last hour? What could possibly have gone wrong? So it's a great experience. If you ever get the opportunity to do an endurance race, and Alex, you've just done the 12-hour, it's a pretty special way to go racing.
And then the A1 GP, which was, for those who aren't familiar with the category, it was an open wheeler category. It was very close to a Formula 1 vehicle. They probably didn't have the same level of downforce and technicalities from that full Formula 1 level, but they were not far from it. And it was an international category against the nations versus nations. So there were certain drivers selected from each nation to represent their nation. Some of them were in the car for the whole season. Some of them, like Australia, were a bit of a
musical chairs.
Yeah. So you did race A1 GP, got some reasonable results in that one as well.
I think this is probably my favourite category that I've ever raced in. So you've got an open wheeler, looks like a Formula 1 car. It had just shy of 600 horsepower, but it was also 600 kilos, so a 1-to-1 power to weight ratio. For example, Sydney Motorsport Park, the supercars on the weekend, I think we're doing 1 minute 29s in qualifying. This did a 1 minute 17 in qualifying, so some 12 or 13 seconds quicker than a supercar, which is quicker than a cup car, and like a GT3 RS around Sydney Motorsport Park must do like a 34, I'm guessing 34, 35, so it's a seriously quick car. The most physical car I've ever driven as well. No power steering, pretty agricultural aerodynamics. I remember the New Zealand race, my hands it was a full green race, no safety cars. My hands were, no kidding, they were bleeding at the end of it from just physically holding on to the steering wheel. It was so physical, more physical than what Formula 1 cars are in upper body. The only difference is you just didn't have the lateral Gs that they do in Formula 1 now.
Enjoyable category though.
Great category. To represent Australia was probably the coolest thing I've ever done, I would say. I've got a green and gold race suit. I've sold a lot of my old race suits, but I will always keep the Team Australia one. But I met some great people as well, some great people from other countries, but my teammates in Team Australia, Ryan Briscoe was one of them. incredible mentor, such an all-round good guy. He's running an IndyCar team now out of the US, the Prema team. And yeah, it's a great car, great circuits, a lot of street circuits as well. I love a street circuit when you've got no margin for error. And the parties were great too. Amazing parties.
What was the camaraderie like? And yeah, the parties. So because you had such an international collection of racing drivers, and a lot of them, you know, it was a racing category, but a lot of them were probably enjoying it a bit more than a full-on Formula One or whatever category it might have been. So was it a bit?
So a lot of the older guys that were there, not drivers, the mechanics, engineers, team managers, they described it as how Formula One used to be in the 70s, where it was this work hard, play hard kind of attitude. But you'd also, while you're competing against your neighbour in the garage beside you, if the shit hit the fan for whatever reason, you'd go in to help the other team, which would never happen now. Would never in a million years happen now.
They just want to see everyone on the grid.
They just want to see everyone out there on the grid. And no matter what happened on track, no matter how fierce the rivalry, no matter who bumped who off the track, come Sunday night, everyone was down at the whatever the local pub was, whether we were in Taupo in New Zealand or in Sydney, South Africa, we were in Durban, Indonesia, we were at a circuit called Sentul, Silverstone, Zandvoort, Laguna Seca, what a circuit. Everyone was down there on a Sunday night, and that camaraderie and mateship that was created, I still catch up with some of those guys. James Hinchcliffe being one of them, he's a Formula One commentator now.
Yeah, IndyCar driver.
Yeah, catch up with all these guys. It was just a brilliant category. It's such a shame that it just kind of fizzled out in the end. They called it the World Cup of Motorsport.
It was a cool category, and it is unfortunate that it fizzled, and like a lot of things, costs and what have you. There's a lot of categories that can't stand on their own. They need all that backing. So.
They did also say that it was set up as an enormous money laundering scheme as well. So maybe it started for all the wrong reasons in the first place. But hey, while it lasted, it was great.
Yeah, for our accountants in the room, that's off record. Thank you. And when you got to supercars, you did all these international things. You came back, had to go in supercars. You mentioned a little bit of the supercar stuff. I've got a few pictures on the board here. You were teammates with Lee Holdsworth, one of our favourites as well. But also Tim Blanchard, who's now a team owner. And he was probably 20 years old in that photo, and he's got just a little bit less hair now. How was it in terms of your driving in supercars? You mentioned that you did a couple of years as a main game driver yourself, but then you also did some years where you were the endurance driver. And in that era, were you in the era where the endurance drivers were able to have, you were in with someone else and the other two endurance main guys were able to go together, or were you in one of the eras where it was you had to have sort of A and B game?
There was the main driver, and then you had to have a co-driver. Yeah. I loved the challenge of co-driving. Those cars, if you can drive a supercar well, you can drive anything well. As we've seen with Scotty McLaughlin going to America and kicking ass in IndyCar. Shane, who did so well on the weekend, his best oval finish with P6. Probably should have been better, except Kyle Larson.
Oh man, what a punt that was.
That was a joke. Roles reversed, it'd be a very different criticism going on. Yeah. Kyle can do no wrong, but anyway.
Well, last year's champion gets to just write his own book.
Yeah. Supercars are so challenging. You've got high horsepower cars, but comparatively low mechanical grip compared to like a GT car. Very challenging to drive, but the challenge as a co-driver, there's so much expectation and pressure on your shoulders as a co-driver. The main driver's in the car for 14 weekends of the year. Pre-season testing, they're in the car every other week. You're expected to turn up in September at the Sandown 500 or the Gold Coast 600 or Bathurst and be within a few tenths of a second of your main driver that knows that car, and that car's been built around them ergonomically, the setup, everything. They know the ins and outs of that car, the idiosyncrasies of it so damn well. And I used to thrive in that situation where you had to get out there and perform as quick as your compatriots. So. And
also, generally, they're in a championship. You're there for 3 races. And
you can't make a mistake. Failure is just not an option for you. You make one mistake, you're only as good as your last race, they always say. And I love supercars. It's such a brilliant category. The tail end of last season was epic to watch as well. Interesting result in the end, but I do miss competing in supercars because it's proper hardcore, all out, wheel to wheel, you can kind of push and lean on each other a little bit and get away with it. For me, coming from an open wheeler background, it was terrifying to adapt to that style of racing at first. But in the end, that's what I loved about it, that you could actually lean up against each other and, a bit of tapping and put a bit of pressure on, and it's one of the best categories in the world.
It really is. And competitive-wise, I think you mentioned earlier on about how close it is.
First to last now. There's less than a second from first to, is it 24 cars on the grid?
On a minute and a half lap. Not like you get that same gap on a NASCAR that's a 20-second lap and they're excited. So, in terms of your stuff in supercars, you did a couple of seasons as a main game driver. And how do you feel the difference between the two? Is there different stresses and enjoyments? In main game, you're driver. You get to get the car built around you, engineered around you. But is there stresses in terms of got to win, got to get results, got to bring money, got to whatever, all those other things that come in the back end of it? And then you get to be a endurance driver where, okay, you turn up, you be a driver, here's some, cars go and drive, but you're looking after someone else's championship, and there's different pros and cons on each one. Where do you feel was more comfortable for you?
I'm gonna take this down a slightly different pathway, if you don't mind, mate.
Please do.
I didn't enjoy full-time racing because of the pressure that I put on myself, and I wasn't enjoying it, I don't think, for the 3 years that I was full-time in 10, 11 and 12. I raced in 2013 with Rick in the Nissan, which was great, and then my daughter Charlotte was born in 2014, and I'm getting a little bit choked up here. Sorry, Charlotte, she's going to be so embarrassed. But she was born with congenital heart disease, and when you're racing, you think it's the most important thing in the world. You're in this bubble. You've got no idea of the realities of the rest of the world. Whatever, wars and poverty are going on, you think it's the most important thing. And you call it selfish. You kind of have to be selfish to be competitive at that level. I had a full year off in 2014, full reset, and off the back of the trials and tribulations with Charlotte and the challenges and just the lack of clarity, to get back into a sport after you've left for 12 months is fucking hard. It's really hard to get back in. Excuse my language, kids, but it's hard to get back in. You get forgotten about so quickly. And I had it was actually Nick Percat, who I think probably has done a bit of work with you over the years as well. He just recently retired. He's got a great gig this year as a co-driver himself with Red Bull. He's in a great place. Yeah. Started his own race team. Nick convinced Tim to give me a shot in 2015. And I had this new lease on life, this new perspective. I remember sitting in a driver's briefing at the Sandown 500 and everyone's taking it so seriously. And I just kind of reflected, like, guys, we're not saving lives here. It's not actually that important what we're doing. We should be enjoying every moment of what we're doing. And this is this trigger for me that happened, and something I've taken with me since that 2015 season is just you've got to enjoy what you do. If you're not enjoying it, back to what I was saying before. But it was because of the experience with Charlotte that gave me the perspective on life, like what's actually important. And I enjoyed every single moment I was out there racing after that point. And I reckon I performed the best I'd performed in my entire career off the back of it. I'd taken the pressure off. I still took it seriously. I still was competitive. I wanted to go out there and win. But I never drove better than I did in 15, 16 and 17 as a co-driver off the back of taking a full season off. Yeah. So there you go, a bit of insight.
And on that journey, sorry to have to go back to Charlotte's situation, but one of our mutual friends...
She's good now. She's had heart surgery and she's a little go-getter.
Absolutely. And one of our mutual friends, Andy Richardson, also had a son who had
Andy was my engineer at the time.
Yeah.
So I was
they
talking
were the same age, weren't they, as well?
We had a couple of D&Ms at the track about it, and he was going through a similar situation. But you realise what's actually important in life. Yeah. And we're lucky to do what we do. Like, we get to go playing with race cars.
Exactly. But it also brings back that whole community of what motorsport is about. Yeah, everyone sees on Sunday afternoon, everyone's racing around in circles, but behind the scenes, there's a big community. And you've mentioned so many names already, but there are so many other ones that don't get mentioned that are a part of our lives back in the background. Community.
It's a lovely community.
Absolutely. The famous incident, Carl. Now,
it was a matter of time before this.
It does come up. It can't be, unfortunately, can't be missed.
Yep.
It was quite a big one. It was back at your home race in Perth. At the time, was it Barbagallo? It was probably called Barbagallo at the time. Paul Morris, didn't get off the line. He did get off the line. He didn't decide to go around you and hit the back of you. On the back of this, you got smashed from behind. The car caught on fire with all the fuel tank that ruptured, and the next generation of car, they actually moved the fuel tank thanks to you.
Well, this kind of is a nice segue into the next chapter, I think, because when you're driving a race car professionally, you have to think you're invincible. Everyone, Alex, you think you're invincible when you're out there, don't you? No. You kind of have to. You have to be fearless. You have to be able to hang it on the line in a qualifying session, especially. And this is the first proper reality check that I think I'd had. I reflected on this. So what happened? The clutch had failed. When you're sitting there, I'll try and walk you through it, paint a bit of a picture. But you line up on the grid in the supercar, and you've got a line locker on the steering wheel. So you've got your foot on the clutch. You get a lot of brake pressure. You need probably 80-90% max brake pressure. You click the button on the steering wheel. It holds pressure in the front line only. That allows you to find the biting point of the clutch without it creeping forward. But you don't want to get too greedy on the clutch, otherwise the clutch gets hot. So I'd qualified P13. I'm not superstitious, but lucky 13, of course.
I know all about the number 13 and not getting off the line, so we're in the same boat.
You've got a story to tell.
Mine wasn't as dramatic, but it made the front cover of Autosport magazine, but anyway.
So you take a deep breath and you're kind of shaking it out. You've done a lot of visualization about what's going to happen, what might happen on the race start. I'm on the line locker. I'm trying to find that biting point on the clutch. And in a supercar with 650 horsepower, it's probably 30 to 35% throttle that you need for a race start. So you build up the throttle, there's a soft limiter, then you're into the hard limiter. So it's bouncing off the limiter, the car is shaking violently. I found the biting point, and you feel the car just squat just a little bit when you lean on that biting point, which gives it a nice acceleration. So the second you release the line locker, you've already got power going to the rear axle. But I started to feel the clutch load up, and it came off the rev limiter. And I've instantly dipped the clutch all the way to the floor. And the clutch is basically, it's failed. It's failed in the moment, and it's stalled completely. So I've got it into neutral. The lights just come on. I fired the engine back up again, the buttons on the steering wheel. I'm off the line locker. I've just given it a bag full of throttle, tried to put it into gear, clutch all the way on the ground, and the thing's just died on me. So I'm a sitting duck. I'm sitting there, P13. There were 28 cars on the grid. It was actually, sorry to correct you, it was actually Steve Owen, not Paul Morris.
Okay.
It was a Sierra car though. That might be the confusion. And I remember Dave Reynolds actually in the red Stratco car. All I could see, you've got this tiny little rear vision mirror. So which side of the car am I sitting on? Left-hand drive, right-hand drive. And you're looking in the rear vision mirror. And the last thing I remember seeing was this flash of red where Dave just narrowly missed me. And then the impact from behind is like, he hit me at about 150 kilometres an hour. Next time you're doing 150k an hour, just imagine hitting an inanimate object. People always ask me, like, what do you remember the most? Like, was it the heat, the fire? But for me, it's the noise. The noise of 1,400 kilos worth of car and the metal. Like, I've never heard anything so loud in my life. And I felt the heat. So what happened is, the fuel cell, it was a 75 litre tank, E85 at the time, so 85% ethanol. It was in the boot of the car. It split the fuel cell open and the firewall between the boot and the cabin, the cockpit of the car. So it's 75 litres of raw fuel poured straight into the cabin. And I felt the heat before I saw the flames. And it talks about fight or flight. I don't think what I did would be any different to what any one of you would have done in the same situation. But I remember taking a breath and thinking, this burning feeling through my throat and through my chest. I couldn't open my eyes. And getting out of a race car is very different to getting out of a road car. You don't just click your lap sash seatbelt and open the door and get out. You've got a harness device for starters. You've got a 6-point racing harness. You're in this cocoon. It's claustrophobic in there, incredibly claustrophobic. You've got the window net, but on top of that, you've got helmet fan that's plugged in. You've got radio that's plugged in. You've got water that's plugged in. You've got the cool suit that's plugged in. It's all this methodical exit to get out of a car. It's not just a simple matter of two things and getting out. And I lost my vision at that stage. I couldn't see a damn thing. And it's amazing how much clarity you have in a moment like that to make good decisions very quickly. So from the first impact, when Steve hit me, to me exiting the car was, I was told 17 seconds, but 17 seconds when it's between 800 and 900 degrees Celsius is a long 17 seconds. So I remember it like it was yesterday. And this is 2011, so we're talking 15 years ago now. And I remember undoing my buckle, getting the window net. I remember thinking about the other attachments to my helmet and the suit, and I thought, I can't afford to take the time to unplug all of these. I just need to try my hardest to just rip them. And I jumped out, and I remember feeling burns on my hands, my legs, my face. I ran a visor that was cracked open, so I ended up with pretty terrible burns to my face, my legs, my hands. It's not my real face. No.
They did a really good job. Much better than the old one.
I should have taken the deluxe option though. But anyway, jokes aside, I could joke around about it, as serious as it was. It was a long time ago. It was Dr. Karl Lee, who's still in supercars now. He tended to me at the scene. My number one mechanic, Sam, loveliest bloke, very quietly spoken. He jumped the fence at pit lane, run across a live track and spear tackled me. I think he was probably looking for an excuse to just spear tackle me for all the pain and frustration that I put him in throughout this season. But the old stop, drop, cover and roll. You could see the flame, as you can see here, because there was just the volume of it. But what you couldn't see was the flame that was actually on me at the time. So, I got rushed to police escort to Joondalup Hospital. And
just to clarify too, that's with all the full fire suit and everything like that?
Three-layer suit, the proper FIA-approved gloves. I had a balaclava on, but the fact that I cracked the visor open just a little bit.
There's nothing.
Well, you can see, I don't know where you got that picture from, mate. It's not the most flattering, but
it's not. I didn't really want to put it, but it does show how dramatic it was. And
yeah,
because you look at you now and you wouldn't know that you were ugly. So I was really fortunate. I had Dr. Fiona Wood. You might have recognised her name. She became very famous, became the world leader in burns because she was. Unfortunately, she was the one, fortunately or unfortunately, she dealt with all the Bali bombing victims back in 2001. So I think she flew up to Indonesia, and maybe some of the patients flew down, but she mastered the craft of basically burns. She'd actually created this technology where she would actually take skin cells of yours, grow them, and could actually spray them back on. So they took a couple of skin grafts from in here, more from my hands, where ironically, it doesn't hurt when your burns are that bad. It burns the nerve endings as well, not to be gory or dramatic, but the worst burns was the least painful, but also equally the longest recovery. It was months of recovery for those. The face probably hurt the most because so many nerve endings. Both my eyebrows were burnt off, and it was probably the photo doesn't quite do it justice, or you might be able to see it. I've got an awkward angle on the screen, but you can see my hands are both wrapped up, and getting out of the car, my suit got hitched on something, got caught on something, and it just exposed my leg enough that I got a burn to the back of my leg as well. But all that aside, I recovered from the injuries. It was so important for me. Doesn't matter what sport it is. This is a sporting injury, not too dissimilar to AFL players doing an ACL or a clavicle or whatever it might be. Injuries happen in sport. And I think what's important, obviously you've got to recover, but what's really important is you get back on the horse quickly. And I was back in the supercar, not the same supercar, that's a very expensive paperweight now. I think they've still got it at Brad Jones Racing, it's up hidden away somewhere. They never got rid of it. I don't know what you do with a burnt out, mangled race car. 3 weeks later, I competed at Winton. It was a battle. I was dosed up to the eyeballs on painkillers, and
limitations with what medication you can take on burns, because sometimes it can actually delay the recovery process of the skin. So that's kind of had to...
race 3 weeks later.
3 weeks later.
How did you get by with the hands and stuff like that? Like in
just,
terms of holding the wheel?
It was uncomfortable.
And what about like the skin? Like
it was wrapped up, painkillers, and it was a couple of 200-kilometre races at Winton. And Winton's a busy circuit as well, as we all know. It's one of the busier ones, especially when you're trying to put 650 horsepower to the ground.
Through 1,400 kilos.
That was important, but the segue or the step towards the next chapter, for me, it was the first realisation that I'm not as invincible as I think I am. I am human, and that could have been a different story. Could have been a very different story. I started to take safety a lot more seriously, my own personal safety, but also became, through Motorsport Australia, then Confederation of Australian Motorsport, became an advocate for safety and talking about, just taking it seriously. If you're going to go and buy a helmet, get a decent helmet and make sure, if you can, wear a frontal head restraint, a harness device, whatever you want to call it, that you actually do. So I did a few videos through Motorsport Australia. I actually became the high performance manager at Motorsport Australia throughout that process. And this is that kind of one door opening leads to another door. And out of all that, through my experience as a professional racing driver, through my experiences in race control, I did a lot of work as driving standards advisor for GT championships, for F4, for the Bathurst 12-hour, Porsche Carrera Cup. I spent a lot of time in race control, a couple of race director roles, and I was still competing up until the last competitive race I did was 2018. You learn a lot in race control. I wish more drivers would spend more time in race control, because it would actually make them a more, I hate the word, but holistic race car driver. Between that, the safety side of things, I actually first started a conversation with my predecessor in Formula One in the medical car, a South African guy who I raced in A1 GP, ironically. He was a South African driver, Alan van der Merwe. I got chatting to him in 2018, and it's actually a really fascinating story. He's probably slightly autistic in the best possible way. He's a software developer, but also an incredible race car driver. He was a BAR Honda test driver. He's got the world record for the fastest ever speed in a Formula One. I was living with him in Milton Keynes at the time in 2006. They went to the Bonneville Salt Flats and they put a Formula One car out there and got
all the wings off it.
All the wings off it, and did 400 plus kilometres an hour in a V10 Honda BAR. So he holds the world record in this car. He won the British F3 Championship, was a shoe-in to be a Formula One driver, and just politically got kind of screwed over, I think. But he met Charlie Whiting in 2009 at an airport, and Charlie, as the race director of Formula One, was looking for a new medical car driver. So literally just ran into him at the airport and said, "Hey, I've been talking with Alex Wirtz, but I actually think you'd be a better candidate because he's asking for too much money. Would you be interested in driving the medical car?" And at that stage, his career was kind of flailing a little bit. So he ended up in this role. But as a software developer as well, him with the FIA doctor, so I sit beside a doctor in the car, Dr. Ian Roberts, and Alan created this incredible technology. So the Formula One drivers the last couple of years have been wearing a biometric glove. So these guys developed it between the two of them, their own business that they started. So they basically have biometric sensors in the Formula One gloves. They've got pulse, they've got oximetry, they've got a motion sensor. They had a temperature sensor that they got rid of because it was sort of irrelevant to both performance and the medical side of things. They started this business, they created the glove and went through all the hoo-ha of getting it over the line for use in Formula One. There's a lot of pushback from drivers at first, and somewhat organically, next minute, this guy's got the US Defence Force knocking on his door, calling him and saying, "Hey, we want to talk to you about this technology because this technology could be really useful for our pilots who keep blacking out in F-35 fighter planes." I don't know how much of this I should be sharing, but here we are anyway.
It's only between us.
It's been nice knowing you, though. So he called me in 2018. He said, "Mate, so this is not the type of the role that's advertised on LinkedIn for starters." He called me in 2018 and said, "I've got this amazing opportunity to grow this business, But the catch-22 is I'm too busy with Formula One. At the time, it was 20 races a year. I don't have any time to grow this business. The only way I can see it working is if I share the role with someone, and the only person on the entire planet I'd be willing to share the role with is you. Would you be interested? I think it took me 0.2 of a second to respond with a yes, I am interested. But just the fact that I was interested was not enough. Charlie Whiting was the race director at the time. He said, but we've got to get support from Charlie. But it makes sense from a redundancy perspective as well to have someone else in the system that can do the role. Charlie passed away at the Australian Grand Prix 2019, and Michael Massey took the reins, the Australian race director, who was a ripping guy. And so throughout the 2019 season, Alan and Michael were talking about getting me involved, and that everything was locked and loaded to start the 2020 season. I turned up at the Australian Grand Prix 2020. I jumped in the medical car. The plan was to go to Bahrain and Abu Dhabi, I think it was, 2 weeks after the Australian Grand Prix. What happened? Friday the 13th of March 2020, they cancelled the Australian Grand Prix. And if you're Victorian, you couldn't basically travel for the next 2 years. So this opportunity that I've been discussing with Michael and Alan for the better part of 2 years is just dead in the water. I thought, I can't believe I've waited this long. So we kept talking throughout 2020, 2021. We went through all the hoo-ha, the COVID lockdowns that we went through. We survived that part of that journey. Alan, rightly or wrongly, his own choice, decided not to get vaccinated. He had personal beliefs and decided against it for whatever reason. Formula One had a very strict policy. So Alan, towards the end of the 21 season, was kicked out of his role after 11 seasons of Formula One because of his vaccination choice. Michael Massey, end of 21. What happened at the end of 2021?
Never heard of it.
Christmas happened. About 3 weeks before that, there was a little race in Abu Dhabi where a championship was decided off the back of a very controversial call from race control. And there's a lot more to that. There's probably a story for another time, but there's a lot more at play. I'll leave Michael we'll get Michael down next time and he can talk through it if he's allowed to.
I don't think he is.
There's a lot more that goes on in race control than what most people realise. It wasn't just Michael. I will just say that Michael was replaced by 6 people. Yeah. That's the load that he'd taken on. So
nice to know, but it doesn't make it right.
Depends if you're a Lewis fan or a Max fan. But anyway,
I'm a racing fan.
I'm walking away from that one.
Racing fan.
So the 2 guys that I knew at the FIA, in Michael and Alan, gone. The borders had opened up in Victoria, so I can go and travel again. But the opportunity, I thought, was gone. So now I've waited tail end of 2018, 2019, 2020 through COVID, 2021 through COVID, and then there's hope and optimism that it might actually come good. And then I thought it was all over. And then I get a call from Niels Wittich, the race director that replaced Michael, January 2022. And he said, apparently our guys have been talking with you and you're the guy for the role. Are you still interested? I'm like, I've only been waiting for 4 years. I'm ready to go. The first round's the Australian Grand Prix. Let's make it happen. And finally, after all that time, I got the call up. But they want to be on board.
What's they came to you about it, but do they still vet you in some way, get you to drive, have a look at what you're doing, or communication-wise, or what? They don't just go, here's the keys, there's the medical car, follow those cars.
So this is the fascinating thing. I thought Formula One was going to be like the aviation industry. Does anyone work in aviation? Like, there's a lot of protocols and a lot of documentation. I didn't receive a single piece of A4 paper about the role. Yeah, okay. Not a single one. And everyone thinks Formula One is like this incredible, it is an incredible echelon of motorsport, but the uniqueness about our role, we're not trying to prevent a catastrophic accident. We're turning up at the catastrophic accident seconds after it's happened. You can't be flicking through a book. You have to use common sense. You use your years of experience, and I do a lot of risk and safety documentation and management for all sorts of events. But I've been employed to do this role because of my awareness. Driving the car is the easiest thing. There's 1,000 people that can drive an Aston Martin DBX or an AMG GT63 four-door on the absolute ragged edge. But you need to have incredible awareness of the cars around you. There's been times where I've been deployed onto a track where I'll look at my rear vision mirror, 1 second, there's nothing there. The next minute, I've got Oscar in an orange McLaren sitting on my bumper. And unlike Bernd, my colleague in the safety car, they have to respect the green light, whether it's showed or not showed. They can't pass him until they're displayed a green light. For me, if they want to dive bomb me into a corner, they can. So I've got to have this incredible calmness in this situation, this high pressure environment where I've got to have this awareness of everything that's going around. And then you talk about the relationship between myself and the doctor. Yes, he is there as the doctor when we get to the scene of the incident. Up until that point, he's my spotter. So he's got a bunch of information on a couple of screens on his side. We've got GPS location for every single car on track. I can see where Bernd is, where every single car is on track. We've got data from the cars, the biometric data that comes through after an accident. And then we've got the live feed as well on a separate screen. I can't be driving around at 200 and, that medical car. At Baku, we're hitting, that DBX last year, we hit 275 kilometres an hour.
And it's a heavy rig too, it's
a
fully
street
loaded.
It's with all the equipment that's in it, it's not a standard one. In fact, the standard one would be faster. We've got the light bar, which gives us aerodynamic drag. We probably lose 5 to 10 kilometres an hour in a straight line compared to a standard one. But the boot is full of medical and first response equipment. But then underneath all that is all the FIA and Formula One. We've got a whole network inside our car. We've got our own Wi-Fi that goes along with the car. We're talking about implementing Starlink into our car this year, for example.
Multiple batteries to
batteries to charge it. That was one of the issues we had in Bahrain a couple of weeks ago. Is Formula One have just gone from high definition to 4K for all their onboard cameras. So hopefully it means for everyone watching better quality of footage from the cars. But with that comes issues. So there's all these little teething issues that we dealt with in Bahrain a couple of weeks ago with these new 4K cameras. But all that equipment weighs up, and what is probably a 2.1, 2.2 tonne car, even with the weight reduction, we removed the big heavy seats. We've got some bucket race seats. You put a roll cage in, a light bar, boot full of all of that, and it very quickly becomes 2.5 tonnes worth of car. So we're manhandling that thing around the track at Baku, as I said, 270, 275 kilometres an hour. We look slow when you see us on track compared to the Formula One cars, but I can assure you, and our performance is quantified as well. A lot of people don't realise that our lap times are measured and we're expected to perform. If we're not fast enough, questions get asked of us. So, which I love. I love that environment. I love that there is pressure on us. And Bernd and I, we get a little bit competitive with each other as well. I got to drive the safety car the other week. Actually, it was a lot of fun.
And do you have track limit penalties, or is that?
So that's a great question. My very first Grand Prix was the Australian Grand Prix 2022. And at the time, the guy who communicated with me, my communicator in race control, Gwen, the French guy, we have an hour on track all to ourselves. So next, on Wednesday coming, at I think it's 3 p.m, I've got the entire Albert Park circuit not quite to myself. I've got to share with my German colleague, Bernd, but between the two of us, we've got the whole track to ourselves for an hour. We do comms checks, we do safety car simulation, we check all the light panels are working, the radio's working. We've got a main radio and a backup radio that we need to check around the entire circuit. There's this rigorous, kind of boring and laborious process that we have to go to, but then the last half an hour of that session, it's a bit of a free-for-all to just go out there and push the limits. And the very first time I did it, I exited the pits, and you've got the blend line. You're not allowed to cross the blend line. It's a penalty in Formula One. And I thought, it's just Bernd and I out here. It's no issue. I straddled the blend line, and I get Gwen on the radio. It's my first showing on track. He goes, Karl, I'm not going to try and put on a French accent, but Karl, we saw you cross the blend line. This is a penalty. And I'm shitting myself thinking, I've just ruined it. My first day on the job and I've ruined it. And he goes, this will be a six-pack at the pub on Sunday night. Relief. They've got a good sense of humour. Thank Christ for that. So it all worked out. They're actually a good group of people in the FIA. They kind of set the tone nicely. But Our laps get deleted if we do track limits as well. And we're always pushing. We're out there. I'm looking at the track from a performance perspective, but also at any given point around the track, what is the fastest way to get from there to the medical centre? And Albert Park's one of the rare circuits where there are no shortcuts. There's a great big bloody lake in the middle of it. I know it's an Aston Martin, but it's not the James Bond edition that can go underwater, unfortunately. So no shortcuts here, but most circuits we go to, there will be a shortcut from, and we need to know every single shortcut around the track to be able to, it is such a cliche, but every second does count for us, literally every second. It could be the difference between life and death for a driver. So we do a track walk as well. So Wednesday at midday, I will do a track walk with the whole FIA team. We'll walk the entire track. We'll talk about curbs, we'll talk about performance, we'll talk about all sorts of different things, and then we do a comms check and the high-speed track test. What I love the most is that I've got the same car everywhere I go around the world. It's prepared by some of the best mechanics that this year. It's exclusively AMG. It's unfortunate Aston Martin pulled the pin at the end of their contract last year. I love the Aston Martin team.
Did you only drive the Aston Martin in the previous years?
No, I've driven both, yes. Yeah, so I did 14 out of the 24 last year. I've got at least a dozen this year, and pre-season testing, which I've just come back from. And yeah, it's really unique to have the same car, the same people preparing it. You turn up it'll be Albert Park next weekend, then China the week after, then I go to Suzuka, which is probably my favourite circuit on the planet. I love Suzuka. Spa later in the year, Budapest, Miami street circuit as well, and then a bunch. I'm doing Vegas for the first time this year, which would be interesting. That's, I think, the fastest circuit we go to. I think Burnt's in the safety car doing over 300 kilometres an hour in that black series.
A couple of things with the cars. They're obviously loaded up with all the tech that you mentioned, but are they also upgraded from, are they more power? Have they got better engines? Have they got bigger brakes? Have they got different gearboxes to deal with the expected effort you're going to be putting them under?
Yeah, it's incredible, I think, how capable standard road cars, high performance cars, I'm sure that a few of you have, we've got a couple of very nice cars here, but how capable stock standard road cars are off the showroom floor now. These cars are pretty much stock standard from a performance. They don't have any more power than the one you'd buy off the showroom floor. They've got the same brake package as you'd buy off the showroom floor. The difference is they're maintained like a proper race team. The only thing that I think they do, two things actually, the additional cooling, some extra fans to cool the rear diff especially. So a couple of extra fans for cooling, and they adjust the threshold for limp mode. D-rate, the engineers call it D-rate, but limp mode. So there's a certain temperature where the engine tries to protect itself and you start to lose power. The threshold is increased because they've got a bit of tolerance
and they're
maintaining it. But also when the D-rate kicks in, it's not wiping away 30-40% of your power. It's just slowly wiping. I can't afford on a chase lap to lose 30% of my power. I would be in a lot of trouble. And when talking lap times, yeah, we're doing, as I said, Baku, it's one of the faster places, but Albert Park, I think we're doing it's like a 2-minute 5 or a 2-minute 6-second lap time.
It's close to a supercar lap.
It's close to a supercar lap time.
Which is a
but when you
dedicated
consider
race car, 1,400 kilos.
When you consider the Formula 1s are doing 1-minute 16s, they do 2 laps around. I've got 30 seconds of contingency, but I'm at the back of the grid as well. And if there's pit lane starters, or if I've got to stop to have a look at an incident, time's just ticking over. 30 seconds is not a lot of time before Max or Charles or whoever's on pole position comes back around again. And we have mechanical issues with the car. We've had punctures before. It wasn't me. Bruno, who I share the car with, is based in Portugal. He's the Formula E safety car driver. He had a puncture at Monaco 4 years ago and had to take the escape road at the back chicane where the harbour is. He hid in there, waited for all 20 cars to come past, and then he limped it back to the pit lane. And we've always got 2 medical cars and 2 safety cars. So we literally jump out of one straight into the other. We don't have the luxury of a full Formula 1 race team to do a full tyre change, unfortunately, but we do have a spare car. And I've had to swap cars a couple of times. It's pretty rare that things go wrong, but at the end of the day, these 4 road cars, the 2 safety car, the 2 medical car, are the hardest pushed road cars on the planet. These cars are just tortured. Every time they're driven, low kilometres, I think, only driven on Sundays. What, single owner? Anyway, it's
So
all
on your Wednesday test, you would test both cars? So
we shake them both down. Yeah.
And then when you're in the pit lane waiting while the race is happening, are you the engine on the whole time?
Engine idling. So we have a full same spec race suit as I should have brought it down actually. But anyway, next time. Same spec race suit as the F1 drivers: boots, gloves, balaclava. We've got a full 8860 FIA open face helmet, which is important for us to be able to communicate. I've still got a visor that comes down. We've got the boom for communication. 5-point racing harness, and we sit there at pit exit typically. I'd say 90% of the circuits, pit exit, Burns and I sit there, and we're literally waiting for a call from race control. It's as simple as Medcar standby, in which case I put the lights on and I'm in gear ready to go, and then they say medical car deploy, and I'm out the gate. Launch control 0 to 100 in 2.9 seconds, and then we get the information fed to us, the corner number, how many vehicles involved, track left, track right. Sometimes we'll catch the incident before we leave.
On your
there's actually,
in the car.
weirdly, there's a 6-second delay with the footage that we have, which they're trying to address this year. This is what I love about the sport, is this constant evolution. There's no complacency ever. We've got a great safety setup, but it's like, well, what can we be doing better? What can we improve? How can we get to the scene a little bit sooner? So that lag that we have, if I can watch an incident before I actually get there, it gives me a far better idea of what to expect when I actually get to the scene of the incident. Like, was it George last year that rolled on the last lap, or was it the year before?
No.
They all kind of blur into one. This is season number 5 or 6 for me now. 5. You get to the scene, imagine going through a corner, not knowing what to expect around the other side. And the good example at Albert Park, again, being next weekend, where the VIS is, the northern end of the track, turn 3, 4, 5, it's a very fast right-hander. Lance Stroll in qualifying, of course it was Lance. Sorry, Lance. I want to say he's a good bloke, but...
No, he's not.
You get to know, you see the best and worst of these guys as well when they're in the car. I could tell you some fascinating stories.
Some
would surprise, some that might not. I remember going, so he's collected the outside. I remember coming through turn 5, and they said the accident was at turn 5. He wasn't at turn 5. They're carrying so much momentum through there. He was down at turn 6. That's where he landed at the end of it. But there was this sea of shrapnel and carbon fibre everywhere. And my job in that instance is to protect the medical car, because if I can't get to the medical centre because we've got a puncture, then we're in big trouble. So I'm trying to negotiate my way through all this shrapnel and debris. And then I've got to consider, there's so many decisions. This is why a document with protocols, standard operating procedures doesn't work for us. In the moment, I've got to think, I want to be positioned close to the car, but my car also protects the scene for the doctors that have to get out. And what if I have to get out to help with an extrication of a driver? If there's a fire, I want to be a little bit further away. And again, using Baku as another example, we cover F2 and F3 as well as F1. So the Australian Grand Prix is a busy weekend. It's 8 hours sat in that car on a Friday, because we do cover every single practice, every single qualifying and every race. So Baku, there was a start line accident in F2 2 years ago. There's a car that was upside down over here, there's a car on fire over here, and another car had hit a wall over there. Shrapnel and debris everywhere. And to walk you through my process, I'm communicating with the doctor, and you would be amazed at the calmness that is in this car. I've got ADHD, without a doubt, but in those moments, there's this incredible calmness that I find. It's the only thing that comes close for me to actually competing in a supercar as far as the variables, the information overload. You're processing so much information so quickly, but you've got to make quick and accurate decisions. So I knew that the fire guy was not far behind, and I could see the driver self-extricating. The driver over here that was in the wall looked like he was getting out, but we knew nothing about the driver in the that was upside down. So I prioritised. We have all this information that comes to us with biometrics. We've got how many Gs the accident was. So straight away on our screen it tells us this driver was 13G, this driver was 25G, and that one was 37G or whatever it might have been. Just plucking numbers out of thin air, but it's just information. You've still got to observe. Just because a guy's copped a bigger hit over here, this is a 40G accident, doesn't mean to say that he or she is any better or worse off than this driver over here. It's just a number. So you use the information that you've got. It helps paint a picture, but ultimately you've got to make a decision with what you observe in that situation. So I parked up next to the driver that was upside down, and we made the right decision in that moment. We managed to flip the car with the help of some of the safety marshal teams that were trackside. It was red flagged at this point as well, so I know that there's no cars coming up behind us. So I just positioned for the best access to the incident. But this is all happening in tenths of a second. So I think decision making under pressure is pretty important in moments like that. Arriving at the scene where George had flipped over to last year or whenever it was, the second last lap of the race, it was turn 6, 7.
6, yeah.
My kids will say 6, 7. They're not listening. Enough of that. We arrived down there, and I've parked, and I've got a call through from Niels, the race director, to say, Karl, don't block the track. We haven't red flagged it. It's still yellow. We're covering it under VSC. So I've got to position the car to protect the scene, but also allow enough space for the fleet of cars. And even under VSC, they're going past you at 170, 180 kilometres an hour, which is slow for them. But I'm standing, I've got Formula One cars going past me at 180 kilometres an hour from here to there away. You have to be very careful with every decision you make. George was okay in the end. It was a bit dramatic, I think, actually.
It was George, yeah.
Yeah, I think Fernando actually outsmarted him in that situation, but anyway.
So,
young bloke, cold tyres.
It's been a fascinating chat, and there's some interesting insights in there, and I'm sure, though, there might be one or two things that people might want to ask about. So we've got a microphone here. Carter, can you pop around and hand this? Who's got some questions they would like to ask that have not been described or asked already? Chris is up first, just here.
How do you go to the toilet?
It's never been an issue.
Just in case anyone didn't hear that down the back, how do you go to the toilet?
How do you go to the toilet? The longest, yeah. Honestly, it's quite often a sprint between practice sessions. Because like the Friday of the Australian Grand Prix, we'll have an hour long, and it's not just an hour. I have to be at pit exit 10 minutes before the start of the session. And then the session finishes, they all finish their laps, they do their practice starts, and then they go around, and then I've got to do a lap to kind of close the circuit. So I'll quite often be in the car for an hour-long practice session. It probably translates to an hour and a half of sat in that car, sometimes even longer if there's red flags and things like that. And then you'll know, I'm looking at the schedule on my phone. I'm like, okay, I've got a 7-minute window. Where's the nearest bathroom? And I'll quickly duck off, bathroom. Quite often in my race suit, I'll leave my helmet on, and then I'll jump back in the car. But yeah, it's quite an interesting question. I don't think I've ever been asked that one before. Yeah.
The other Chris.
Hi. Thanks, Karl, for your insights. Two-parter. Do you need a co-driver next Wednesday at 3 o'clock? And the second one is, any stories from after parties from, say, Monaco?
Monaco's a great weekend. I've done the last 3 Monacos in a row. As for next Wednesday, it depends if the doctor gets sick or not. So I'll tell you his room number, where he's eating dinner on Tuesday night. And if he gets sick, then... Exactly. Good to know. Monaco's a great weekend. Has anyone done the Monaco Grand Prix? It's bloody special.
Not as in raced it.
No. How good is it? It's such a unique event. I've been very fortunate to do it the last 3 years in a row. Seen some very big incidents. But off track, there's a lot of fun off track as well. I don't often have time to let my hair down. It's usually, Monaco's part of a triple header usually. It's Monaco into, I think, Barcelona and Imola last year. But yeah, it's always good fun. I actually ended up at Max's private party on the Sunday night, which was great. He's such a lovely bloke. I think he's so misunderstood. I don't think the British media do him any favours, but he is the loveliest, what you see is what you get with him for sure. He's the type of guy, he'll always give you the time of day. One of the doctors was supporting a charity and wanted to get some things signed by Max to raffle off for a particular charity in Hungary. There's 3 doctors. There's a Hungarian doctor, an American doctor and a British doctor. So Laszlo, the Hungarian doctor, he wasn't at the Montreal race 2 years ago. He said, do you reckon you could try and get Max to sign something? And I ran into Max. I said, hey, if you get a second, it'd be super helpful if you could support this charity by signing a pair of race boots and a helmet. And he asked what the charity was. I can't even remember what the charity was, which I should remember. But he said, meet me here at this time, and I'll be there. And he was there. He showed up, and he signed it for this charity. But he'll always, he'll always hold the door. He's, polite and everything. But on the topic of Monaco, the other story I wanted to share with you earlier was they do hot laps at Monaco, at other circuits. They call them Pirelli hot laps around the world. They only do a select few races. It's usually 6 out of the 24. And last year, for the very first time, they decided we're going to try Monaco, which is a big risk because we're talking about road cars without roll cages in them, driven by young, probably slightly egotistical race car drivers, with passengers, usually friends of the brand or sponsors, things like that. Bernd was supposed to do it for Aston, and he had some schedule conflict. Bernd said to me, hey, do you mind filling in for the Pirelli hot laps today? And I hadn't been briefed. And I said, mate, consider it done. I'm not going to say no to driving. It was a Vantage, the brand new Vantage S, which is some car. It's the first time I'd driven that car on track, and it was at Monaco. And as you do, you're kind of getting acquainted with the car around the streets of Monaco, as you do. So I'm starting to sound like a bit of a wanker right now. I think I had half a dozen laps to do for these special guests. And I'd started with the traction control quite high, and then as you get more comfortable, more confident, it comes down, and I got to the point where I'm like, I don't need traction control. I'm out here having some fun. And so AMG do it in the GT, Aston Martin do it in the Vantage, McLaren do it in, I don't know what it was, a 720, I guess it would have been. So Oscar and Lando are driving them, George is in the Mercedes, and they've got these Fords, these super duper Fords as well. It's like a GT4 spec, top of, I don't know, Dark Horse or something. I don't know what it is. But I hadn't been briefed. Sorry for the long story, but I'm out there, I'm thinking, I'm having some fun. My guests are loving the hot lap. Who doesn't love a hot lap, especially at a place like that? I start my last lap, and I can see this Ford in the distance, and I'm hunting it down, and I've gone through, past the casino, the Fairmont. I've exited the corner into the tunnel. I'm going through the tunnel. I'm thinking, am I allowed to overtake or not? I don't know what the rules are. I actually don't know what the rules are, but I think it'd be a pretty epic experience if I overtook someone at Monaco. And I can always ask for
Mr. Safety making
forgiveness later. So I'm like, fuck it, let's just give it a go. So I go through the tunnel. I've got to run on this Dark Horse Ford Mustang, whatever it is, on semi-slicks. I've come out of the tunnel, and I thought, I'm doing it. I'm going for it. Full conviction, up the inside into the bus stop chicane, through the chicane, a bit of curb as you do, hit the loud pedal and gas the thing up, and laid down a couple of big strips off the corner with it was epic, and I thought nothing of it. The passenger, this guy was in hysterics. He thought, this is amazing. It was effing this and effing that. This is effing amazing. This is the best experience of my life. And anyway, that was done. The next day, someone from Formula One comes up to me and says, hey, were you driving the Aston Martin yesterday? And I thought, oh shit, I'm in trouble. I said, yeah, that was me. He said, you know you weren't allowed to overtake. I'm like, I'm sorry. I made a mistake. I didn't know. I wasn't briefed beforehand. I'm sorry. It won't happen again. And I'm expecting her to say, well, you're not getting an invite back again with behaviour like that. And she goes, do you know who you overtook? I said, what's this got to do with it? She goes, you overtook Max. So I'm like, how good? I'm updating my LinkedIn and everything. I'm like, I overtook Max Verstappen at Monaco of all places. So that's, I was pretty pumped. I was chuffed off the back of that.
For you.
Yeah, exactly. So anyway, that's the long story. There was that little punchline at the end. So it was a lot of fun.
Worthy long story. Well done.
Yeah.
What do we got? Jim? We need an
G'day, Jim.
interpreter. He's from New Zealand. So.
Thanks for the evening so far. Earlier on, you mentioned you had a good story about Nürburgring, possibly your mum not getting the
Oh, so you can't go to the Nürburgring, the Formula One track, and not cut a couple of laps around the Nordschleife, right? I was living in the UK, and I had some. It was a 1.8 litre Honda Accord was my daily driver, manual. Loved it. That thing was terrorised as a car. The B roads and C roads around the UK as a 19-year-old. So I drove from the UK through France and Belgium and into Germany. Raced at the Nürburgring in F3. And this was 05, so before smartphones, and Gran Turismo was just kind of coming in. But I knew of the Nordschleife, and I thought, well, let's go and buy some laps. So my mum had come to visit from Australia. My best mate, country boy, Duncan, he grew up on a 10,000-acre farm in WA. He was visiting. He bought this guidebook, which was mostly in German. It was like, think about like it's like this dodgy little book. It went through corner by corner to tell you where to go.
Like rally notes,
It's kind of like pace notes in a way. So he rode shotgun with me, but we'd picked up 2 German tourists along the way, and they said, we're going to come along for the ride. So my first lap around the Nordschleife.
Male or female?
One of each. They were brother and sister, I think. So we're 5 up in this Honda Accord. And we bought 4 laps. And I knew none of the rules. I didn't realise you had to, keep left or keep right.
There's a common theme coming on here.
Sorry?
You don't know any of the rules. There's a common theme.
Yeah, there is a common theme. And we did 1 lap just kind of cruising around. And then the second lap, I thought, I've just got to go for it. And we went, it was sub 12 minutes, which I think was pretty respectable for the old girl.
With 5 up.
And we had to sell the other 2 laps because there was nothing left of this Honda Accord. Like, the car was never, ever the same again. I had to drive it back to the UK, and it might as well have written it off. It was wasted. And my mum was so angry at me for how hard I pushed this thing with her. And she didn't know what she was signing up for. Duncan did a bloody brilliant job on the pace notes. I put all of my trust and faith in him to guide me, and the 2 German tourists were just white as ghosts, and I never saw them again. So yeah, it was a great circuit. One of the best circuits on the planet, that one. Yeah.
Questions?
Fire away.
Thank you. Karl, often when we're watching the F1 in Australia, often we kind of blur the F1 cars out and just focus on the DBX at the end, because your reaction off the start sometimes seems better than some of the F1 drivers.
Sometimes I nail it.
Do you get a penalty if you, can you jump the start? We were talking about this before, can you jump the start? And given, like we're saying, you're doing supercar kind of lap times, clearly you've still got it. Is this better than racing, or does it make you want to do racing?
It's always mentioned when I jump the start. They see everything. They've cameras everywhere, the CCTV systems. It's worth, if you ever get an opportunity to go into race control, it's incredible how many monitors there are. So they never miss a thing, which I learned on that very first experience at the 2022 Australian Grand Prix. But I have jumped the odd start. It's funny, actually, the grip that you get with all-wheel drive in wet conditions, it was Singapore 23, it was bucketing at the start of the race. It's the first time ever I've actually had to roll out of the throttle because I was catching the F1 cars until the aero comes in. The second part of your question about what's more rewarding, I get a similar sort of buzz out of doing this, that there's nothing, I thought once I finished professional motorsport, there was nothing that was going to kind of fill that void. That, yeah, when you're in a car, I think about like a Sandown 500 where you're driving this car on the absolute limit of what it can do, but you're attacking, you're defending, you're managing your brake balance, you're managing your front anti-roll bar, your rear anti-roll bar, you're communicating with the engineer, and you're managing your own well-being. You're trying to stay calm, you're getting the fluids in. There's so many variables, and I thought there's nothing I'll do for the rest of my life that'll come close to that. This, for me, achieves it. But the best part about it now, the one thing I struggled with when I got back to the sport after Charlotte was born, was it did feel like a very selfish thing to go motor racing. I I enjoyed it. I appreciated every moment, but there was almost a guilt that I had for a little while there. What I love about what I do now is it actually feels like I'm making the sport better. I'm giving back to the sport now, and there's nothing more rewarding than when you can give back to something that you love. It's probably the best way of answering it. Yeah.
Fantastic answer.
I might ask as well, your surname, did they believe that you're Australian, or did you have to put it on? Did they think you were...
They get confused. It's actually Austrian, so Austrian-Australian. Have you seen the T-shirts at Vienna Airport? There's no kangaroos in Austria. Apparently there's a bureau, a desk where confused tourists have to go to because they thought they were going to Australia and they've ended up in Austria. I'm told. Maybe it's a wives' tale. Yeah, there's always questions, but no, I've got away with that.
Does that mean it helped, or was it a hindrance, do you think? It didn't make a difference?
I don't think it really made a difference, to be honest. It's a name. It's my name.
Just on the name situation, well, not quite just the name, but your brother also raced.
Yes.
And you actually got to race together with him in the mini cup, mini challenge. And so how was it racing with him as well? Like, I mean, was that just a bit of fun, or were you still very competitive at that point? You wanted to smash him, make sure you were the one who gets...
I think anyone that's grown up with a brother will know how competitive it didn't matter what it was. You know, first to the top of a flight of stairs, it was elbows out, breaking all the rules, pushing each other over. But to actually compete in the same car together was one of the best things I think I ever did. It was probably the slowest race car I've ever driven in that Mini Cooper challenge. But it was one of the most fun weekends. I think if you can do the sport that you love, but do it with someone close, a good mate or a family member, it's one of the most fun things. Yeah, I love that weekend.
Who won?
Well, he ended up beaching it. He had an ABS failure into the last corner. I was being interviewed. I handed it to him in the lead, and then I was being interviewed about my stint and how my brother was going to go, and I was pumping him up, and then the TV's cut to this little, you know, the footage of Chris, my brother, stuck in the sand trap at turn 7 at Wanneroo. So it was an awkward interview after that. Yeah.
Any more questions?
Who's coming to the Australian Grand Prix next week? Yeah, all days. It's one of the best events. Honestly, I think we're so lucky. I mean, we all complain about the price. I think it's the 5th cheapest of all of the F1 races on the calendar, but there's something really special about the Australian Grand Prix. That and the Singapore one, to me, are the 2 best events. If you're a real diehard, you obviously go to Spa. I think Spa is one of the best to go to. Monaco's pretty special. It's a very different experience, but honestly, we're so lucky to have Albert Park, the Australian Grand Prix, and to have it as the first rounds of the championship is, I think we take for granted just how spectacular that is.
Yeah. One thing I'd like to ask, if there's no more questions, is in between sessions and things over a Grand Prix weekend, maybe not at the Australian Grand Prix where you're so busy doing F2, F3, all the rest of it as well, but on some of the other weekends when it's more Formula 1 focused, where do you hang out? Who do you hang out with? And like, is there some behind the scenes stuff that has entertained you where you've seen, I didn't expect them to say that or do that or something?
Yeah, look, I spend time with my colleagues in the FIA, but you get to know some of the drivers. The Kiwis and the Aussies, notably, of course, kind of stick together. I had a lovely chat with Liam after the Bahrain test. We're hanging out at the airport, Liam Lawson, and it was fascinating getting an insight into these new cars and the new regulations.
I'm surprised nobody asked about the new cars. He was there at Bahrain, so he knows everything about the new cars.
Yeah, they're really struggling with them. This new hybrid system that they have and how it transitions between the internal combustion and the hybrid system, both on power. We've seen the cars coming out of corners and 4th gear, plucking gears and spinning up. So I don't think anyone really knows who's going to take out next weekend. I think Ferrari's looking quite good, although they have a reputation for showing their hand too soon, I think. I think Mercedes AMG have probably wound the wick down a little bit from pre-season testing. You've obviously got McLaren, they'll be super fast straight out the gate. And dark horses, it's so hard to know. That's what I love about the sport with the reg changes. I think the biggest disappointment is Aston Martin. They're just struggling so much, it seems. I'd love to see
Alonso gets a Honda back behind him and he's...
I can't believe it. And he's one of the loveliest guys up and down the grid. I've spent a lot of time through the relationship with Aston Martin. We do a lot of functions together. Every year, the Saturday night of Monaco, Aston Martin put a lovely dinner on, and Fernando comes. He rides his motorbike from home and through all the traffic and joins us for a couple of hours. And he's one of the really nice guys on the grid. I can't help but feel like he deserves another world championship. Wouldn't it be nice? It would be 44 this year to have another world championship, but it's not going to happen this year, is it?
Right.
Yeah.
So who else is nice on the grid? You mentioned Max, you've mentioned
the
Alonso.
the Aussies and the Kiwis, like Jack Doohan was always super friendly. Oscar's always friendly. Mark Webber, lovely guy. Always stops to have a conversation with you. I know he's not competing anymore, but you'll always see him in the gym. I don't know how old Mark is now, but geez, he's in seriously good nick. You'll go down to the gym at the hotel, and he's always there before you. They take their fitness very seriously, those guys. Yeah.
I'll ask a quick one.
Yep.
You don't have to comment, but you're obviously inside F1. What do you think of the theory that Oscar was mistreated by McLaren? You don't have to comment if you don't want to.
You did bump into Mark at the...
Are we
so...
just upset Aussies, or is there something to...
No, look, when there's smoke, there's fire.
Yeah.
I was aware that there were some tensions within the team long before the end of the season through various conversations, and as Dean mentioned, I happened to run into Mark at the airport lounge after Abu Dhabi. This is Monday morning after Abu Dhabi. He lost the championship, and Mark opened up a little bit. I won't go into too much detail out of respect for Mark, but there was a lot of tension and some gamemanship that was certainly going on there, and potentially some favouritism as well. So everything that we've seen here, I know we're looking at it as Aussies and we want to support our local boy, but I think personally he was unfairly treated at the tail end of that season. He was flawless the first 3 quarters, and it was almost a shoo-in that he was going to win that championship, and then it just started going downhill. The only real mistake I think he properly made was Baku. It was really unusual for him. I don't know what happened at that point in time, but I wasn't in Baku last year. No, it was the year before I was there. But as I said, you see the best and worst of these guys. Actually, there's probably a good little... I picked up most of the drivers at some stage. The ones that I won't talk about the negative ones.
Who chucked the biggest tantrum?
The biggest tantrum? Yuki. I feared for my life in the medical car. He's punching the roll cage. This is Hungary 2024, when he was in contention for that Red Bull seat. He was junior, and he's exited turn 5, and he's dropped the wheel on the edge, and it's just launched the car, and he's jumped into the medical car. He was screaming, like genuinely screaming. But that's their last opportunity to kind of let it all out before they're media facing. So you can't blame them. It's an emotional sport, and you're going to see it. So I feel comfortable saying that. I'd say it in front of him if he was here, and he would have a laugh about it. But the ones that really surprised me, I picked up Lewis at Monaco, an FP3 in 2024. This is right before qualifying, which is the most important. Like after Saturday afternoon, it's all over, right, at Monaco. He's crashed the car, done some damage, and the calmness that he had, it was an acceptance of what's happened. He can't change what's done. All he can do in that moment is support his team in the best possible way to make sure that the car is ready for the next session, for Q1. And I have so much respect. I have so much respect for people that have that clarity in the moment. And maybe he would have been a bit more fiery in his early career. I think it doesn't matter what sport it is. Everyone talks about Roger Federer being such a lovely guy. He was a prick in his younger years, at 19, 20 years old. But I think with that age, that maturity comes that calmness and clarity. I was really impressed by Lewis in that moment. Fernando as well. The couple of times I picked him up, he's dealt with it. It's done. What's happened in the past can't be changed. All I can do is, focus on the future.
Well, on that note, it's been a fantastic chat, and it really, I think, is a highlight that I've known you for a long time and always known you as one of the nicest guys in motorsport, and there aren't that many nice guys in motorsport. So I think tonight's discussion has been a great opportunity to share that and show others that it's not just me that thinks that. I'm sure everyone else here is quite.
I've dug up some old
excited about
stories,
that.
and you've jogged my memory on a few things as well. And
Yeah.
I've enjoyed it. So thank you.
you
Thanks
so
for having me,
much.
and thanks for coming down as well. And I look forward to seeing everyone next weekend. What's the weather going to do next weekend? Perfect. I don't even bother looking. It'll be what it'll be.
Give him a wave if you're in the audience at the Grand Prix. Give him a wave. He'll be waving back. So.
Yep.
Thank you so much, Karl. It's been fantastic.
Thanks, everyone.
Cheers, man.
Thank you. Always a pleasure.